Hi, this is Pete Lyons with Let's Play Salesforce. And in tonight's Einstein Analytics, we actually have a guest on the channel for a third time. Bobby Brill is going to be joining us to talk about updates for Einstein Discovery in the Winter 21 release. Bobby, it's all you.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Bobby Brill, product manager with Einstein Discovery. Winter 21 release is one of my most favorite. I think this is going to be, I think this is the tipping point. Anyone who's sort of thought, maybe I should try this product, I think now is no better time to try it. So with that said, I'm going to highlight and show you demo some of those features. All right, so everything I'm about to show you is, for the most part, GA. I'll call out anything that potentially is pilot. There's a couple things that are on that pilot line. So I'll definitely call those out as I get to those. So the first thing, this is, Pete, I think you'll like this. I think this is the thing that's going to get you into discovery at all your clients. So first off, when I click create and I choose story, I'm now presented with new story templates. Ignore this one. This is a test one that I was playing with, but you get new story templates. Story templates give you all of the power that you love out of the sales analytics, service analytics app, a data flow that's feature rich and builds all these things for you, so you don't have to think about how to build the data, and then it'll kick off your first Einstein Discovery story. So I'm going to kind of go into a couple of these. So if I go into maximize win rate, what you're going to get is you get started quickly. That's our goal. We want our customers to understand how to best use Einstein Discovery, because the data prep piece is the single hardest thing that's causing people to build bad models. And so we want to give you those best practices and actually get you a starting point to analyze your data. So maximize win rate, very simple. You've got a bunch of opportunities. We're going to look at your history and we're going to see what is driving opportunity is one, that field that says if that opportunity is one, to be true versus false. So we'll look at all the, we're going to build some features for you. We're going to build a data flow and we're going to kick off that story. We have minimized time to close. So this actually looks at the age of the opportunity. And we want to minimize the time to close because obviously you want to improve your sales process. And then we're looking at, this one's actually not in yet. This is kind of one of those borderline ones. But with maximize customer lifetime value, what we're doing is we're looking at all of your accounts that have closed deals in a certain time frame. And we're saying in this time frame, this type of account could close this much business. So if you take that model on top of, let's say, new accounts or maybe accounts that you just started selling to, you could learn from some of those signals and sort of try to predict how much value you could get out of this account in that same kind of time period. So this is a really exciting one that I'm trying to finish this one up and get it out there in the winter release. So that's still my goal. And then of course you can still create from a data set. This is how the product looked before. So I just want to show you this did not go away. So one more thing I want to show you there. I didn't mean to do that. Let's go in, because this is going to look very familiar to anyone that's used to using our apps. We do some org checks. We want to make sure that your org has the right detail to analyze within Einstein Discovery. So the first thing is you need at least 400 closed opportunities. For win rate, we just look at closed. You got to have at least 25 closed won opportunities or 25 closed lost. We need to make sure there's enough data to analyze for that outcome. We want to pull in some optional objects. We don't know if you're using this, and it's okay. You might be using opportunity line items and activities. If you're not, that's fine. We'll still build the predictive model. We also use opportunity history. The assumption is that exists, which it might not in a full copy sandbox where you didn't copy over the opportunity history. So just note that if you're doing this in a sandbox. We want to make sure that the integration user can see all the fields. That's really important. If the integration user can't see some of the fields, we actually, if it's not an important field, we throw it away. If it is an important field, we're going to error out here and tell you that, hey, the integration user needed access, give that before, because we don't want you to get all the way through the app and have a failure. We're looking for record types. It's special configuration. Most people are using record types, but You'd be surprised how many people I've talked to that don't have this. So it's an option. And then we're looking at historical data. We want to make sure that you have enough data in the last 365 days. Why 365 days? Well, in a good predictive model, if you have 10 years worth of business, whatever happened 10 years ago, your sales processes changes, your customers have changed. You shouldn't use that historical data to predict signals for future data. So we wanted to take it back some period of time. 365 days is just something we put in the template. We recommend our customers, they know their business better than we do. They can edit this and say, they can choose whatever that time period is. But building a good opportunity win rate model, you want to look at history, but you don't necessarily want to look at all history. Usually a good example of this is, the COVID times, businesses have changed. If I go back 1 year ago, I might not want that data to see, what's driving sales. Things might have changed. So I might want to, change my filter to, let's say, the last 6 months. So I just want to call that out. But again, we'll do it all for you, and you'll end up with this app. So this is just an example, of course. So you get a data set, you get a data flow. I don't know, Pete, if you want to go in that data flow during this, I'm happy to. I'll let you make the call. But let me first show you what you get out of the box.
Well, you know me, I always want to see data
You
flows.
love data flows. I know. I figured that. So I'll make sure to show that. Okay, so the first thing I thought of was, this is great. We're going to do all this stuff, but we don't really have a way to tell the user what we did. So kind of at the last minute, I had this idea. In fact, this came to me in my sleep. Some of my better ideas, I guess, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I still think it is. Some of my really good ideas come to me in the middle of the night, because now that I'm working from home, I feel like I'm at work 100% of the time. But it came to me, I said, what if we just had a dashboard that told you what we did? So it's not necessarily intended to give you any use. You don't necessarily need to give these to any other users, but it's telling you what we've done here. You're going to get kind of a generic generic detail on what the story is, because you might not know that. So it's going to tell you what a story is. And we built you a training data set. We want to really train our users on how to best use Einstein Discovery. You're training a model, so we're building a training data set. It's not just all of your data that you pump into Discovery, which I think is how most people try to use it at first. We're going to tell you what we analyzed. And like I said, we looked at the last 365 days of data. So here's the count of opportunities which closed in the last 365 days to understand what's driving them to win. So it should be pretty straightforward, but I think just having this level of information is pretty useful for the end user. And then we're looking at win rate. So this is my win rate. This is my average win rate based on that data. Here's the number of won deals. Here's the number of lost deals. If I take this ratio, I'm basically gonna get this number. And it's telling me what's actually going on here. And then lastly, we created a bunch of fields. I actually wish I did this with the sales analytics app. Basically, field definition. I guess technically we linked you to help and we had all this information, but we have it as a dashboard, so it's like front and center. So what are the fields that we created? And then what's the description? What does it mean? Because we're going to throw a field in there. You're not going to really understand what it means because you didn't create it. So we wanted to be really just super obvious there. And then lastly, we want all our customers to understand trusted and ethical AI. We have a feature that allows you to mark something as sensitive data. We don't necessarily know what of your data is sensitive. We want to make sure that our customers are building trusted and ethical models. So we definitely wanted to throw this blurb in there for them to really understand basically that this feature exists and they can use it, and they can make sure they're building models that don't have bias or potential outcome disparity. All right, that's the details of what you get out of the app. I can go into the story, but this story's, and I'm just going to show you for really quickly. This is what a story looks like. This is not what it's going to look like with any customer's data. This is what it's going to look like with my test data. So I don't necessarily want to go into too much detail here, but I do want to show the data flow. All right, so here we are with the data flow. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm doing a bunch of I mentioned some of the computed fields, but I just want to kind of, I don't know if you have any questions on this, but we're pulling opportunities, we're pulling account information. I'm calculating the tenure of the user. This one, borderline, might stay in. Ideally, what we're doing with win opportunities, we want to look at the profile of the account that's related to that opportunity. So what type of account is it? What kind of variables that we can look at explain that account? Also, we want to look at the owner. There's probably some variables in that owner that are interesting, right? Because a brand new sales rep might have a lower win rate than maybe a seasoned sales rep. So one of the things we looked at was how long have they been an employee, but some of the other things I might actually put in before the release goes out completely is maybe the number of won opportunities they have. So have they won before or not might be a good predictive signal. We're doing a bunch of compute relatives. So this is looking at sort of the aggregates at the account level. How many total opportunities have been won on that account? Now, this is where compute relative is super cool. I'll actually go into this. So if I have all my opportunities, I group by account, and then I order by created date for those opportunities. What I get is when each opportunity is created, how many won deals were there at that time? So we're sort of getting we're calculating this point in time based on history data, total number of won deals when, opportunity one was created, there would be 0, right? The first opportunity that was done for an account, well, there were no opportunities, close won or close lost at the time. So we have that information here. And not only do we have this information, this is before we did that 365-day filter. So we're looking at all the time across that account. So we have won deals, we have lost deals. I have the date of the last won deal, and then I also have the date of the first deal, because this is going to tell me when did that account become an actual customer. This is the definition that we have for how long we've been doing business with the account, is based on the created date for their first deal. So compute relative lets us get all this stuff. It's awesome. I love compute relative. And then we do some other kind of joins, and you may or may not have product if we're looking at product. I get this question all the time. In fact, I just responded to it on the Trailblazer community today, which was, I'm doing win rate, but I'm doing it at the opportunity line item level because I want to include product in my win rate model. But what if I have an opportunity that has 100 line items? Then we have 100 copies of the same opportunity that won. Well, in a good predictive model, you should build the training data set at the grain of what the prediction you want to do. So if we're doing a prediction at the opportunity level, we can't have the history of all we can't have all those products in there. So my recommendation to the customer was, you can pull the top product. So what is the product that is most, or the highest value for that opportunity? What's of that opportunity amount, which product has the highest total price? That one is probably going to be indicative of whether or not the deal closed. You may want to pull, 1 or 2 products, but for this, we're pulling that top product based on that same logic. So I'm using compute relative to understand what is the highest total price product on that opportunity. And we're bringing that into we're basically creating this top product, and we're creating a field at the opportunity level that has that. So these are all things that are possible predictive signals. I've seen other customers do very similar things. So this was really based on how some of our early adopters were actually doing this. And we said, let's make it a template. So really excited about story templates. So opportunity win rate and time to close are basically the same data set with a different outcome. One is age, one is won. Okay, so let's look at some of the changes we've done if you are a customer of Einstein Discovery. So the first thing I want to call out is we removed the settings button. We used to have a settings and an edit story. Settings and edit story were redundant, so we decided to you click edit story to get to that setup. Within the setup, you're going to see a couple new things. First off, we have this new filters applied column. So a filter applied is we've had this in the product, but if you do a filter, like in this case, I've unselected a particular value here. I have this unselected values. We move this up. This used to be in the bottom. So I can now either exclude from the store, add to other. This was there. We just moved it around. But I can unselect things, and then you'll see this kind of not equals filter. So now I know I'm using this specifically to exclude data in my training data set. So if I take outliers, you're going to see a filter applied here at the outcome. So this just makes it easier to see that I have a filter. We have a new data alert called high cardinality. So this is a really interesting data alert. We've always only included the top 100 field values in any model. Anything, and that's top 100 based on occurrence. So the 101st and so on would actually be grouped into this other column. Now, when you're building a predictive model, you might not want that. You might want to actually have all of those values. That might be really important to you. You don't want to necessarily group into other, especially if you have a big data set and your, let's say, 101st value actually has a lot of occurrences. So with the winter release, we let you choose a higher cardinality limit for a single field. And the reason why, so first of all, we've doubled the limit from 100 to 200. You may say, hey, 200 doesn't sound that much either. We wanted to cap it at 200 because we also don't want to degrade the performance. The more fields we have, the more interactions we create, the more charts. And overall, it makes the product go a little bit slower. As we're working on improving that performance, expect a higher limit in the future. But let's see what this does. So if I allow high cardinality for occupation, if I go into settings, actually, let me do this again. Let's check it. Unfortunately, that other checkbox doesn't check this checkbox. So if I check this allow cardinality for this field, it opens it up to 200. And you can see now there's 138 values in this. So this is a good place for me to use high cardinality because there's less than 200. So now I get to look at every single field value. There is no other. So this is a great way to look at more things. Let's see. So I've selected this as high cardinality, and now I have this that's high cardinality. So what if I want to set it here? It's not going to let me, and that's because we have a limit. I can only set it for one field. Most of the use cases we've heard from customers really is around one field, like product or city, or even region is typically not, but usually some sort of location that has a lot of different cardinality. We see that. So I wanted to call this out here. If I make a change and I don't actually update the story, it's going to tell me unsaved changes are discarded, which is how things worked before. We just didn't pop that up for you. So now we're making it really obvious what's going on here. So I want to leave. Okay, so now back in the story, let me show you the version history panel. Hey, guess what? Do you want to tag one of these versions with some information? Now I have details. Yay. So this is just, it seems silly, but I've got this a lot from customers. I just want to tag these things with some information. So we built it for you. Well, it's the easy things that make people really excited.
No, and I definitely agree with that, because when I'm building out data flows, I find myself downloading JSON after JSON after JSON, and a lot of times I'll, it's maybe because like I don't know what I'm going to do next is going to work. So what I actually do is I name the JSON to whatever the change I just made was. So
yep.
If 5 steps down the road, I'm like, no, I went 5 steps too far. I know which JSON I went wrong at.
So it's funny you say JSON. We decided when we built Einstein Discovery, it was going to be a no JSON first product, because you're like, no, I love the JSON because then I can do whatever I want with it. But unfortunately, most of our customers, when you show them the JSON, they're like, wait, you told me there wasn't any code here. And then we say, but JSON's just metadata. And they say, no, this is totally code. So We
Well,
decided to take a no JSON first approach with discovery.
I actually haven't gotten a lot of, can I get the JSON for this from clients that I show discovery to? I've been getting a lot of, can we mess with the R?
Yeah,
And,
yes.
the
Yep.
answer is, well, not
Nope.
currently, but I asked them, well, what would you do with it? And they're like, oh, just want to know if we can.
Right. Yes. And I'll address that in just a second, in fact. Okay, so there's the version history panel, and then we cleaned up model metrics. I love this page now. This is amazing. Before we had this, the first thing you'd see was this giant checklist where most of the things were actually, these red X's, and it was like, wait, does that mean I shouldn't deploy my model? And usually the thing I was looking for first, and what customers should be looking for, is this first card here. This is the thing that tells you whether or not you have a good model. So if it's a number field, R squared is the most important. Click on this little eye icon to really understand what this means. Ideally, you want an R squared like within this 70 to, I don't know, 90%. I know this is points and I'm saying percents. You're like, what the heck? Well, that's where a good model is. We're continuing to make this a little bit better, more usable, but at least for now, this is front and center. And for binary classification models, if I'm predicting true false, for instance, then it's a metric called AUC, and it's a similar type of number that's going to be between 0 and 1, and you want an AUC usually about like 80%, because 60 to 80% is okay. When you hit the 90 and up to 100%, then you start getting into this area of, wait, are we telling the predictive model how to make the prediction? Is there something in the input that's telling it what to predict? And that's where we call it too perfect of a model. So it's data leakage is the term there. So you want to avoid that.
Yeah, like, did you know that 100% of closed won opportunities are both closed and won?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So yeah, we don't want to tell a predictive model that. Otherwise, the second they see that field closed lost, well, they of course know that it's not won, and you're like, yeah, I know that, but I won't be telling them that's closed lost at the time, because I want to look at open opportunities. So it's a good way to kind of measure your prediction. There's a bunch of other things we have here that we've added. So under model evaluation, I can see this residual plot, and then we added a new thing called the QQ plot. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but it's just, we've had customers asking us for these things. I've got cross-validation, same thing we had before. We added these, I think these are new, pretty sure. So it explains kind of what these metrics mean, and you can still get the coefficients. So if you really want to know what's driving the in this case, maximize amount, I can see what's the actual kind of fields, second order fields in this case, or interaction of two fields. So this is telling me what's actually going to that model. And yeah, so then I can still get my R code if I want to. We want to pilot a bring your own model feature in the winter release. It's still kind of on the fence of whether customers will be able to do it yet. There's still some back-end stuff we're working on, being fully transparent here. But this is where customers can potentially put their own models in if they don't like what's coming out of Discovery. So you can't edit this, but you can, if you maybe did build your own model. We're going to support TensorFlow libraries, which is it's a Python library. TensorFlow is a Google open source predictive modeling function or library, and that will be the first thing we support when Bring Your Own Model comes out. Okay, so this is Model Manager. It looks great. Now let's get into deployment of models, or actually maintaining deployed models. So first thing I'm going to do before I actually show you Model Manager and the updates, I want to remind you what predictions can look like on a record. So I have my likelihood to win model. I've deployed it. It's great. I love it. I use the supplemental data source to pull in the number of tasks, because while it's a good predictive factor, I want to tell people to create more tasks to drive their win rate. And it's going to look at, how many tasks, and it's going to get that information from a data set. So here's what the card looks like today. I have this improvement, and it says increase completed activities dot count to 21 to 23. So there's a couple problems here. Not only is this not readable by any business person or really any humans. I mean, I can read it because I know what it's supposed to say, but no, this doesn't, while this is supposed to be driving an action, this doesn't tell me what I'm supposed to do. It says create completed activities. That's right. I can't create a completed activity, or I guess it's saying increase. But still, it's not really actionable based on the text that's there. This is the biggest feedback I've gotten from customers. So we wanted to fix that. So I'm going to take you into Model Manager. And I'm going to go into this. Here's my model. And I can edit it. And we've updated this. It's now a modal. I no longer have settings within settings. Maybe you didn't notice that before, but I did, and it's always bothered me. So we made it a modal because it makes more sense. We've broken it up, the model settings, into 2 tabs. Before it was all on 1 page. And I've got improvements. So I have this activities completed selected, and I now have this new feature. What text do you want to display for improvements? I would like to specify custom text. So for number fields, you can specify an increase and a decrease value. For text fields, I can choose a default text for basically all of the fields, or I can add a value to say, hey, for this one, let's say opportunity type. So for new business, I want to have a custom text, and for enterprise, I want to have another text. Opportunity type, that's not an actionable variable. That's literally, I can't change the type of opportunity, but I can change the way that the improvement text shows up for any of those values for a text field. So I'm gonna get rid of this because I don't actually want this customized, but I do want to customize activities. Now, first off, I can't tell someone to decrease the number of activities. I might have a predictive model that says in some situations, less activities happen to drive higher win rate, but I don't want to actually show this. So I'm just going to say, do not show decrease. I only want to show increase. And we have there's some formula to use. So bracket field name, bracket diff are some options here. I can get all the options by going to text options. I'm not going to sit here and type it all out. So I'm going to copy and paste. So I actually want to create min diff more tasks to improve win rate. So what's min diff? This is how many tasks do I have today? And we showed you, I think it was like 10 to 20 was that bucket. Well, this is the difference between my current number of tasks and that minimum number. So it's just kind of, what's that minimum threshold that we're saying here. So let me save it. And then I'm going to go here and I'm going to refresh the page. There we go. Look at that. So now create 20 more tasks. Okay, .0, I need to fix that, but create 20 more tasks to improve win rate. This seems way more actionable to me. I don't know. If you don't think it is, you can change it to something that is more actionable for you. But that's the goal with this feature, is you can customize that text. Now, there's an asterisk with this. It is not yet local. You can't localize it. I mean, you can type it in whatever language you want, and it's always going to show that for every user. So unfortunately, we couldn't get to localization. We're still trying to think about how that's going to work. But whatever language you do type it in will show up like that. So I do want to call that out. And then last but not least, I want to show you, you see this new model refresh tab. So I'm really excited about model refresh because the way to refresh a model today is I update the story manually. I then deploy the model again as a new version. I go through the whole model deploy flow, and then then I have my model. But what if I have a data flow or a recipe that is keeping that training data set up to date? Well, if that's already occurring, I can set up a model refresh schedule. So I could schedule maybe monthly to pull the latest data based on that training data set that's, again, already refreshing. And I can tell it, how often I want to refresh, what's the time. If I have multiple models as part of my prediction, I can choose which models I want to refresh. Maybe I don't want to automatically refresh some of them. So I have that choice. And then it's really important that we don't automatically deploy the predictive model if there's a lot of warnings. So if your predictive model in the wild, there's a lot of missing fields or a lot of out of bounds fields, it means you probably need someone to review your story, and you should change some of your settings. Maybe your training data set should allow null values because outcomes are actually have nulls. Or if we have a lot of out of bounds, that means there's new data that you didn't train your model with. So you should retrain your model and tell the model, hey, let's include these fields. So there's this refresh warning threshold. So it'll create the story, and you'll get a notification saying, we refreshed the story, but it reached that warning threshold. So go into that story and actually make the changes, and then you can manually deploy it from there. And then you want to set up who receives the emails, because if it doesn't refresh or it does, you want to let people know. And it's great to have personal notifications, but every single time I talk with customers, like, yeah, we have this group of people, we want them all to receive it. Can you just give it to us? So we support groups as well. So these are public groups created in Salesforce. And then it just works. So that's model refresh. If I set up model refresh, I can click refresh now to kick off the job. And the job will, as you can see, there's a lot of warnings and failures. But if the data set that's tied to that story, if it hasn't been updated since the last time the story was created, well, we're not going to refresh the model because the data set didn't change. We know the model's gonna be the same. So we'll send you a notification there. But yeah, that is the winter release. Again, I'm really excited. Oh, no, it's not. How could I forget one feature? Sorry, this is actually the one I love the most. I can't believe I forgot about that. Pete, I know you know Process Builder and even workflow rules and approval processes and flow and the declarative aspects of the platform. Now, did you know that you can add predictions there, or can you make those more intelligent? Did you know that? My guess is no.
I have been known to give a dev or two a run for their money when it comes to clicks, not code.
Right. So let's say I have this approval process on my opportunities. Maybe it's on the amount, and when it hits a certain stage, I need to make sure my manager approves that. Well, what if my manager didn't have to approve everything? It's only going to approve certain opportunities that met a certain threshold, or met a predict or exceeded some predictive model. So I can maybe auto approve that. So let's take a look at this. I know I'm showing you something that's already been created, but I'll get into what it's actually doing. So in this case, if this formula evaluates it true, let's auto approve this record. So I'm just going to X this out and start from scratch. In the winter release, there is a new predict function. Build and deploy your Einstein discovery prediction and access it here. So I get this predict function. It requires a prediction definition ID, record ID, and or field values. In this case, I want to insert, I don't want to insert. I want to insert a field, and I want to choose smart data discovery. Click on prediction definitions. And let's see, this is my win rate model. And let's get that prediction definition ID and insert it. So now I've replaced prediction ID with the actual ID, done it all through clicks, and I want to provide it the record. Let's insert field. In this case, I just want to do it based on the record ID. Where is that opportunity ID? Come on, there it is. And let's insert that. And let's say this win rate, let's say if it's the likelihood to win is above, let's say 70, I want it to auto approve. So let's check that syntax, no errors found. Well, there you go. Now you have an approval process that can skip the actual approval based on a prediction. So this predict function can be found in workflow rules and process builder and flow and next best action and validation rules, which is a interesting place to put a prediction. I thought of some good use cases, but maybe there's plenty of reasons why you don't want to stop saving of a record due to that, but you could. It is not supported in formula fields. So you cannot create a formula field with this. And that is simply because formula fields are evaluated for all the records, and we don't want to be doing that. Our prediction API doesn't support that, so we purposely don't do that. But in these types of processes, we do. So I'm super excited about that.
So really where the line is drawn is that it will only be calculated when a record is modified and not when a record is queried.
That is correct.
For anything that supports this standard formula function list, we're going to have it.
That's correct. And if it's missing someplace, you let me know and I'll make sure it gets in, because it should be everywhere.
I'm going to do some crazy stuff with this.
So flows, you can automatically, go to one direction based on a prediction. In this case, you could argue that this prediction was already written to the field and I can use that. But not all cases are you going to have that prediction actually written down. Maybe you only want it in your rules, or you want like a different model to run in your rules than the one you're actually persisting on the record. So there are plenty of use cases. I had a customer when I talked to her about this, she said, "Oh, this is amazing. We have an approval process on leads that's using an outside model to make that decision. We can just very quickly update our approval, put a discovery model in, and then it just makes things so much easier." So a lot of use cases around it.
So yeah, I do have a couple of questions. I noticed this first one is more of a comment. I noticed that your org-wide win rate is 49.99%. And while I do recognize that that's because it's test data, I do want to just tell the audience at home, if you have a win rate that high in your org, there's a good chance that you're not ready for discovery because your reps are not putting in quality data. You have at least some of your reps that are waiting until the contract is signed and in their trunk before they're bothering to enter that. So I would say a good validation rule, or force an approval or something, would be, don't let users create opportunities with past dated close dates, or have a like a naughty list report that points that out. Because if you're not putting every opportunity into Salesforce, the predictions are only going to work off of what's in there. And if people only put in closed ones, well, then everybody's a winner.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, so one thing that, and I don't necessarily think there's a good answer to this, but as I was watching you like build out this, show me the data flow that it's building out, I noticed that it creates a data set called opportunities.
Huh.
So
Great
does sales.
question.
So does every copy of Sales Analytics.
Yeah.
So does
How
do we
we've
deal with
actually
that?
fixed that already, and it's not in what I showed you. So it'll say opportunity training data set in the actual one. When this hits Sandbox next week, it'll still say opportunities, but the fix is already done, and we're just waiting to patch it. Good question though,
because
I got that a lot.
It's like almost every template creates a data set called account, and then I don't know which one's which. And then when I'm in my JSON, I've got I have seen instances in demos on this channel where the API name of that data set was opportunities 43. And that's indicative of a well-loved demo org. But then last question I had, now I don't know if this is like the philosophy of extreme ownership that I totally support, or if this is if you meant it in the literal context, but you kept saying things like I'm building, I need to fix.
Oh, yeah.
Do you mean the royal I, like at the end of the day, if it worked, if it's success or failure, I have to own that, but it's actually my team doing the work? Or are you like rolling up your sleeves and doing data flows?
It's a great question. That's a great question. So, I came from sales analytics. Well, before sales analytics, I actually was hired on the team to help build service analytics. So before that was GA, I was building the data flows and dashboards, and I loved getting my hands dirty. And with the templates, my engineering team, the full stack team, they didn't really know how to build templates. And I actually built them myself. So with the templates, I did it because it was something I wanted to do because I love doing that. I know it's not, 100% sustainable, and there's some more templates we want to do. I don't want to be the slow part in getting those out there. So I probably won't continue, but yeah. So I did it. So the fixes, yes, I'm doing those, but some of the other ones, my team is definitely helping out, and I think the features that they built are far superior than the templates. Templates will help customers with adoption, but the product itself is just because I know the product is awesome. So, Good question, though.
All right. Well, that's actually all I had, because you're extremely thorough in your demos, so you don't really leave me a lot to ask about. But very excited. I really want to call out in particular that the whole model metrics page. I thought the improvements there were really nice. But just overall, everything's coming along so quickly, and it's great to see this becoming so much more like easier to sell, because there's just a lot of transparency, the ease of use. It's put in front of the customer is really all it takes at this point.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank Bobby for coming out, and to everyone at home, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, and as always, thanks for watching.
Awesome. Thank you.